it takes 9 months, once rooted, that's already in the field. So not only do you have to put them in the greenhouse for like 6 to 8 weeks to root, then you got to harden them off. You can't just take them outside, they die. Like a nursery, you got to look after your kids. Once they root, you take them into a separate area where there's less watering to try and condition them to outside environment. And only in 8 or 9 months' time, they're then ready to go get planted out in field. And then, of course, we have a plant quality side where you want someone with a checkbook to say, or a tick list that say, is this plant tall enough? Yes. Is this plant green enough? Yes. Does it look sick? Does it look healthy? No. So each plant that goes out, you want the best plant. So when you harvest in 8 years' time, you're getting the best plant that you produced in field. So that's pine, right? That's pine. Let me take you through eucalyptus. So these are the two main types of trees in forestry in South Africa, and one that SAPI grows. Okay, so next slide. Right. So similar to pine, with eucalyptus, this is a eucalyptus 1 plant in the nursery, very small. We just planted it, and this is what it looks like on your left-hand side with my laser pointer. Look how long one bed under a nursery tunnel looks like. I think one bed is about 60 meters or 70 meters with, I think, 800 to 1,000 of these small plants, or hedges, as we call them. So it starts off with one plant. We then take that cutting of around 10 centimeters. You then cut the leaves to improve its transpiration rate. And then this is inside our misting houses. You can look here, these plants are all planted in those little inserts in trays, and you can see how much there is. And after 6 to 8 weeks, you pull them out and look at the roots out the bottom of the tray or the insert. And then once you take them out of this misted environment, we then take them outside and you let them harden off for about another 4 weeks until they're ready to go out in the field. And this is the paper pot I was talking about, something that it grows in a paper pot, and the roots actually can pierce through the paper, and you can plant it in field just like that. And this is what it looks like when it's planted out in field. And I'm sure many of you know what a forest looks like, a planted forest, a very big forest, So it all starts off here in the nursery. Okay, so now that we understand that propagation side, and there's another slide just to give you an example of in our greenhouse tunnels. These are all hedges. Look at how many mother hedges there are that we keep taking cuttings from. You can see the ladies got cooler boxes. They keep taking shoots, putting them in cooler boxes, taking the cooler boxes to a shed where the guys then plant them in those trays and put them in the misting house. And just to give you an example, look at the issues you have. You have something known as powdery mildew, which obviously kind of a mildew, powdery mildew, like a white mildew settles on your leaf, stops production, hampers your shoot. And then you have things like botrytis, which is something that kills off your plants in a too moist environment. And there's also bugs and snails and everything like that. And then a little bit about our plant quality. We have different measures at SAPI. You can see if you look at the scores related to the height, less than 13 centimeters is a score of 0, between 13 and 15 is 5, and optimal is between 15 and 22. So you don't want a too tall plant or too short plant, you want an ideal plant. We also look at things like cutting position or the number of white roots that are coming out of the tray to score those plants. So those are some of the quality measures, and yeah, I'll show you why it's important going forward. Okay, so now that we understand the nursery side of it a little bit better, I'm going to introduce you to some of the smart forestry techniques that we are currently working on that are very technologically driven. So computer vision, some of you might have heard of this. It's a combination, or it sits in between a lot of things or a lot of disciplines that you might have come across of at varsity or in your undergraduate or postgraduate years of studies. So things like artificial intelligence, image processing, pattern recognition, signal processing, a bit of physics and mathematics, but it's more calculation-based. And so computer vision sits in the middle. And I'll give you an example, a very quick example of computer vision. If you're looking at your screen, you look on your right-hand side, everyone know who this is. This is Felix, right? Felix the cat. And it's a very black and white image. So if you just move your eyes between the two, you can see using binary numbers 0 and 1. If you just quickly scroll between the two, you'll probably be able to pick up Felix in this image here as well, just using numbers. So what computer vision does is it uses pattern recognition to get patterns from a picture, just like Felix, whereas your black pixels or your black cells are ones and everything else is 0, but you're still maintaining that shape or that size and that information in that picture. So we're trying to use that concept to try and measure things in the nursery or in the field very quickly. And these are related to, once you have that mathematical or those numerical values, you can extract patterns and start playing around with different methods of analysis. So touching a little bit on the work we've been in the nursery or we've been doing. So the idea is that you have a nursery plant or a tree in the middle. We're taking photographs of this all the time. You then put it in a very clever computer and then you can mathematically get answers or patterns or extractions and try and make meaning of these. So a very quick example, I didn't put a picture of this camera, but I should have. It's a FLIR camera that comes on your cell phone. So if anyone knows of a cat phone, you know, the CAT phones, a lot of them come with a built-in thermal camera. And I see a lot of the Androids now. So whether you buy a Samsung or a Huawei, it has a thermal extension and you can buy it and put it in at the bottom of your phone, and then you can start seeing thermal imagery. So a very simple concept like that, using computer vision with normal pictures. So if you look here, this is the top view of a nursery sand bed with little hedges in there. We then took some FLIR imagery, and you can see obviously the blue being your cool areas and your red being your hot areas outside there. And it makes sense because the idea here is your plants, they breathe in just like us. So while they're breathing in, their aim is to cool themselves down or regulate their temperature according to what the ambient temperature is. So if it's a hot day, these guys are going to be breathing in and out, trying to cool their air or cool their leaves, and also hold in some moisture and produce their photosynthesis and stuff like that. So a normal plant should be cooling itself effectively. If a plant is sick, it's going to have, when you're sick, what's wrong? Firstly, your temperature is high. So you're going to have problems breathing. And eventually, when the plant dies, it doesn't have the ability to breathe. So what we did with this, a very simple technique is, we then try to extract these heat pixels or these heat signatures for each over time. And if you look here on my left-hand side, we got a temperature. And then every week from January to July, we then took a picture and then we got the thermal readings for the pixels of each plant. And what's nice is to see, so those that were dying, represented by the brown line or orange line, you can see the difference in temperature between those that were effectively able to cool themselves. But also visually in a nursery, you must know you're dealing with probably thousands, millions of plants. How do you then quickly pick up one that's dying? So using this technology gives us a proof of concept to commercially go and have maybe a roving camera that's thermally picking up which hedges are dead or not. And the good thing is, visually at this stage, when a hedge starts to lose its color, starts to yellow, you can clearly see there's a difference between those that are healthy, those that are dying. They then turn brown, and then they eventually die. So spectrally meaning using the pixels from the imagery, you can see the difference in these readings based on this graph. So now you know that if a temperature of above 21 on average during these months of April and May, compared to your norm, which will be just below, I'd say 20 degrees, you know now your plant could be sick. And then when it comes to around May, you have temperatures that are higher than your normal plants, you can start picking out those that are going to die early. Then you then replace them. And you're saving time and money, because if you wait 3 months to replace a hedge, by the time you plant a new tree, it takes another 3 months to make it a hedge. Carl, I see your hands up.
Thanks, Kabir. So Why are the dying plants only not cooling themselves in winter? Surely it would be in summer that they would suffer the most. Why does it become pronounced in winter?
Oh, good question. So yes, theoretically, in summer they would have to work the hardest. Under those tunnels, it can get 45 degrees. They'll have to work harder. They would die. So ironically, or not ironically, I'd say like whether fortunately or unfortunately, since we sampled in Jan and we continued sampling even till now, death or browning only occurred during this period. So once August, September hit, these plants started firing full force. And obviously it got to do something with warmer conditions. Uh, I think up in Tweedy it's very cold. So we got a feeling that with watering, with the cold, they can't stand the shock. And we know from experience that pine plants do not like their feet to get wet. So it could be a combination of the cold and then they can't adapt. So that was one explanation. And the other one is when a plant dies, we normally have a pest and disease team that come in. So another department that comes in. They then sample for spores and nematodes and a whole lot of soil pests and diseases. And then they come back and tell us, hey, you have an infection here. We need to sort this out before it spreads. But in this case, as I said, there was no infection and there was no disease. So, Carl, I think it had to do with climate. It's cold at Tweedy. These plants started couldn't handle it, started dying, and we were there to picture it as it happened. So it'll be nice to do this seasonally and understand what's going on. It's just very new data, hot off the press. So good question. I hope that answers your question, Carl. All right, lovely. So let's move on to my second slide on smart forestry. This is just giving you an example of one of my areas in the greenhouse, my test or my playground, where I have different number of hedges. Some of you might know of different types of sensors to measure plant stress, water stress, and these are all compatible throughout the industry, so not only in forestry. And this is a handheld green seeker, an NDVI sensor. And those of you doing remote sensing would know NDVI is an indicator of plant health. So we're using this now to test, pick up those stress plants and those that are not. Whether it's stress from pests or diseases, can we pick it up early with the sensor? And on my right-hand side, this is a picture of a forest plantation from the sky. So using a very high resolution picture taken by a satellite sitting probably 10 or 20 kilometers up in the sky, taking a picture of this where you can see the green is all your planted areas and those bare areas are your harvested. And I put this picture in to show you using the same concept of NDVI, we can do that from a satellite. And this was for assessing Gonipterus impact. So if you see some of the work on Gonipterus in forestry, Gonipterus is a very small ant-like insect that goes and eats our trees. And these trees can't handle the amount of feeding Gonipterus does. So if you look at what we've done, we've taken a satellite picture, calculated an NDVI, just like what we're doing in nursery, and then get a map, a hotspot map. And this map shows you basically, so NDVI, basically a low NDVI would mean red, which would mean areas that are highly not healthy. And then areas in green would be those that are healthy. And then in between, you have your yellow and your oranges. So that's your scale of NDVI. And this is just a high resolution picture of showing you in one compartment, these compartments are massive. You can actually pick out the regions that are highly affected. Sorry, my mistake. When I mean, so the red would be those areas that have low chlorophyll content. So low and high. NDVI is related to chlorophyll content. Low chlorophyll content would mean this area is sick based on Gonipterus, which has been sampled to be in the area. And then this is how we make management decisions regarding a forest plantation. So just one example from the nursery and going into the field. I'll give you some more examples, but while we're on the computer vision side of stuff, I want to show you something that is exciting to us and something that has just come out. So remember we spoke about taking pictures. So this is a nursery tray in front of me with all its labels and its date and what species and variety it is. So you have a nursery tray, there's 128 plants in it. that has been produced in the misting house, and we leave it for 6 to 8 weeks to grow, and then we take it out for another week, 4 weeks, and then we want to send it out into the field. So using computer vision, this was my standard Huawei camera. We took a picture from on this tray. And remember, we spoke about the sensors. We use the thermal. You get tens of sensors like LiDAR, and LiDAR is tells you distance. It's like your traffic cop camera that's trying to catch a car that's speeding. It keeps shooting a laser beam. The car is coming, and it's doing the calculation of distance over time and calculating the speed of the vehicle. So similar along those lines, LiDAR is a very expensive laser camera, sends out a beam and measures the distance of your tree or of your car or anything like that. So we try to look at a cheaper alternative way using a Huawei P10 camera and using some Python modeling. If you look at the computer screen there, you can see how it takes your tray and then bursts it into many, many points. So we actually mimicking LiDAR on a seeding tray. So yes, we want to do this in field, we want to do this to other agricultural crops. So once we get this point cloud, we then do a, what you call it, like a filtering. So what we do is we filter the points to the edge of the tray. And once we have the edge of the tray, if you look very closely on the red, then we want to select only those that are on the top of the tray. And why that's important is, remember we spoke about plant quality. So plant quality, you want a plant within a perfect spec, which is a nice height below, I think it's around 22 centimeters. You want it a good color, you want it it must look nice, disease-free. So just working on height now, we isolated the top of this tray to get those point values of this tray. And if you look at the next slide, using your cell phone, the Python script can then estimate what is the width of your tray and what is the height of your tray. So now, obviously, we want to do this very fast in the production environment, and that's why we're looking at computer vision to get information like this. So yes, this is not very accurate because you can see it's taking the top of the leaf and it's estimating what's your average height at 25.8 centimeters. However, you are going to get smaller trees, so there's a lot of variability. And we now working on the technology to try and trace this, like I showed you before, and get an average or a height for every quartile or quantile of a tree. And if you look at my R squared down here, let me move this there. If you look at my R squared down here, my detected tree versus my observed tree heights, and those of you working with an R squared or correlation coefficient of 0.72, like almost 70%, which is not bad for our first sample. So this technology is very, very new for us, and I think there's lots to learn by just using your cell phone camera and computer vision for getting information related to a tree. We've played around with color. Color is a very good indicator of health. Obviously, something is brown, you know, it's not healthy. Something is green, but there's so many other things that your eye can't pick up, like other wavebands. In there, there's near infrared, there's far red, things that your eye can't pick up besides green and brown. There's yellow, there's blue. So all those give you indications of health of a tree, and using a normal picture, we are able to extract that quantitatively and then make assumptions about how our tree is going out. So this is a proof of concept that we want to take into our production nurseries, and we're now in the middle. We proved the concept, we're now looking at how can we take it to the next step. Some work on remote sensing. If you see this is an example of some of the breeders' work. You have two trials, one on your right, these trees are gone very big now, and the one on the left. So on this side, the guys sprayed for something called destructants. So destructants is a disease that affects your tree growth, and it's an impact trial, so a chemical exclusion trial. So they sprayed some chemical on this side and not on this. And you can see after so many years, these trees just visually were looking much better, much more foliage, and they're much more greener. And then these ones a little thinner. And obviously we did a lot of measurements. But just to give you some idea of what remote sensing work we're doing from the sky, you can see there's the plots there. And if you zoom in, you can see there's the plots that have been sprayed, and then some here that haven't been sprayed. So just looking at these things from the sky and trying to get a feel spatially of what's going on. And then from here, we then take our scientific evidence, and then we want to apply that to common practice in forestry. Obviously, one has to look at the rands and cents, which is a big issue. You don't want to be spending more. Another example that I'll give you, something known as wattle rust. So wattle rust is a rust fungus. I'm not going to go too much detail, but I'm going to show you how we modeled it. It came in 2013. And what it does is, so this is a wattle tree, and this is courtesy of the Institute of Commercial Forest Research, where I used to be not too long ago. And what they did was, this wattle rust, you can see it bends and twists the leaf. They call it a rust, just like the rust in a car or on metal starts to spread. You can see it got a rust color that goes on the leaves and encourages the leaves to fall. And look at how big these big trees got no leaves. So how is the tree going to grow with no leaves? And it actually took the wattle industry by storm, and I mean across the country. And what we did is we went out. So if you look at KZN, those of you familiar with this, we went out and we sampled Peter Teef, Vryheid, Wartburg, Howick, Topo, and around Harding as well. So we put in some monitoring sites, we did some field work. We then got some nice Landsat imagery, so some satellite images from the sky. So the ones from the sky, very, very high resolution, much more information than your cameras and your phones, much more expensive as well. And this is what these images looks like once they are transformed, using those transformations like NDVI or health or water. And looking at it from the sky, we then extracted this information, and then we mapped out your presence of wattle rust, or the probability of this presence based on its occurrence and its environmental factors. So if you know wattle rust in Wartburg is high, we go and sample there and get those environmental variables, and then we model it across the whole wattle rust industry, or should I say wattle plantation industry, and then we get a map of probability. And this just gives the guys an idea of how do we manage this? Where's our hotspot areas? What preventative measures do we make? So a lot of it is focused spatially on a forest protection side, whereas on the nursery, it's more about improving growth, also protecting our plants, but mainly improving growth and trying to get much more plants out of the nursery to plant in our field. Does anyone know if baboons attack trees? So baboons have been a very big nuisance. And that's why I like this, because when modeling or looking at spatial data or working in forestry, it's not the same thing. Something you never think of can attack your trees. And in this case, it's baboons. And you can see how they bark strip, they bite these trees. Again, no one knows why they do them. There's behavioral studies, there's overseas collaborations. There's also guys from UCT that have come on board from that side, look at the behavioral side, look at the modeling side, the troop side, and how they distributed, and food patterns, to try and understand why do they strip trees. They strip it, sometimes they lick it, sometimes they board, sometimes can't be food, because they say there's a lot of these high productivity sites have a lot of mushrooms, a lot of bugs outside, or I'm not sure what they eat. But yeah, there's a lot of things to keep them busy, but sometimes they do it just because they're bored, or the animals. So a lot of things go into this. And you can see, look at the extent of this on the right-hand side here. It's if you're farming this, and if your crops look like this, you're in trouble, right? Because with pine, you're harvesting every 18 to 20 years. So how do you explain this crop for 20 years it's been growing, and then bam, gone? So very dynamic environment, and it's exciting. Well, not for the farmer, but for us, because then now you have a problem to solve. And just to give you an example, again, we used a very high resolution. Look at this. This is a satellite image over Mpumalanga, going down from Amsterdam right up to Graskop and Sanin. So this is where the issue of the baboons were, and it was a joint effort by many companies to try and do a widespread sampling. You can see this is what the top of the trees look like. It's in a big compartment. If you're looking at trees, those brown crowns, they are what are dead trees. and caused by baboons mainly. And then here is a normal stand or a normal forest compartment of healthy trees. And you can see the difference just visually. And from the sky, using Google Earth, you can see there's some baboon damage. You can actually see the ground. You can see sparse coverage. And then whereas a healthy stand of a different species, this was a very more susceptible species for a clone, and we're not sure why. Could be preference. And just using that, we then spatially mapped out a damage potential map based on just light, remote sensing light, light variables. So that NDVI and those red lights and blue lights and green lights values, showing you which areas were more damaged in the plantation for a number of companies. And of course, we publish these. Yeah? So if you look there, the work is published, and it's always nice to publish and get your work out there. Some very exciting stuff with regards to modeling baboon damage. Yeah. Okay. So another example of drought. This was also in KwaZulu-Natal. This is a compartment of plants or forest stands, and we modeled NDVI. So where it's low, so where the chlorophyll content is low due to the drought, you can see it's highlighted in red, and in those areas, obviously in green. So this year, why it's dark green is because it's a completely different species of plant grown that's not susceptible to drought. So you can see how well that's green, but look at the rest of the area. A lot of areas very, very much struggling, even though they look green, but they're very much struggling to drought. And then just some maps that we produce for our company to show them where to go and target these trees. Go and watch out what's going on here. There could be a fire risk here. There could be more disease here. If you deal with this now, then there won't be any issues in the future. All right, so I think I have the last few slides left. I was just giving you an idea of the applications that we do in HPW from a remote sensing modeling side. Spoke to you about some computer vision. Now I'm going to speak to you a little bit. I think I just have 2 slides on this. So yeah, let's see if we can complete this. So this is something different, and I know with HPW we're always about climate change and stuff like that. So something just related to a little bit of rainfall and patterns and some of the work that we are looking into. So this is a rainfall data set from the South African Weather Service, looking at all its station data, whereby rainfall, looking at daily rainfall from 1950s to 2019. We then summarize this data monthly, and there's over 5,000 stations around these areas. If you look at this map of South Africa, you can see where the stations are based. It was specifically bought for forestry, so maybe that's why there's no station data everywhere else. This is the forestry region of South Africa. You can see it's along the coastal sea belt, where we have high rainfall and good temperatures, etc. And what we're trying to do here is we're not modeling for future. We actually work along with the CSIR, with Wits University, that does the modeling for the future, the 2040 to 2060. But what we're doing on our end is we're trying to model using the actual data of what's happening now. So as the forestry industry, you want to know what's your rainfall patterns like today, what's it next month, how much do we have last month? And a lot of the climate models that are produced are like annual or for 2040 or 2060. So what we are looking at, or some of the work that I'm doing, is I'm looking at a method called interpolation. It's very simple. If you watch my screen, simple interpolation methods are known as kriging or kriging or inverse distance weighting. And what it does is, the principle is basically you have a point in the center and you have a rainfall point 4 other places that you know. So you have a point of 30, you have a point of 20 mils, a point of 50 mils, and a point of 60 mils. And this can work to soil samples. It can work to any of your samples. If you know an area of known, you want to predict an area of unknown, such as this one. So inverse distance weighting looks at the distance to the closest point, and then it weights that point more. So because you're close to 30, your point is more likely to be 30. Kriging also is, I think it's a linear-based approach. So it looks at distance rather than your weight of your point or how high you score. So it looks at distance, inverse distance weighting, also distance, but I think it's more on weight. So if you're closer and the weight of your point is 60, then it's more likely you're going to be closer to 60 and in between 30 and not 20, something like that. So just to give you that idea of what we want to do is use something called regression interpolation, whereby you use a statistical model. So using a statistical model to try and model what most of the probability of that point is going to be based on all 4 points. Something like nearest neighbor interpolation, but it's clever. So you can use covariates. So for example, rainfall is linked to altitude. Rainfall could be linked to atmospheric pressure. Carl is a chemist. He'll have some better explanations to me. But just speaking about what covariates are there. So vegetation could be an indicator of good rainfall, altitude, elevation, so things like that. So we want to understand what covariates are there that can help us to improve our statistical modeling. So if I move on to the last slide, these are just some predictions. So some geostatistical spatial interpolations made by a model called a general linear model with an R square of 0.5 and a root mean square error of 0.1. So what it means is your R square is not the highest, but as a first try that we've done this, and we just based this on 4 variables. So it was looking at your rainfall for 2019. So looking at your station rainfall for 2019, and I decided why look at data from 1950s all the way to 2019. Let's start with current and work backwards, because I think it's more important we know what's going on now with regards to drought and what happened last year and the year before that. And then slowly we can work our way backwards and understand. So these are just some grids predicted by our general linear model for South Africa based on those points, whereby we got our predicted with our box distribution. You don't have to worry about all that. The main thing is, and then there's some residuals here. The main thing that you need to work about or look at is our interpolated predicted layer using the general linear model. And it gives you a continuous surface based on points. And that's what you want to know. You want to know in an area where you didn't sample, there's no rainfall station, what is the reading most likely to be. So that's just a general linear model. We then used a very competent random forest model, very, very commonly used in remote sensing. We got a better R square there. So again, once we look at more covariates to add, understand and do a little bit more reading, get more environmental variables in there, get more maybe some NDVI variables in there, some remote sensing, satellites, a big spatial data in there, we might be able to get a little bit more reliability. We're working on the model where it combines the two. So it's a stacked meta ensemble stacked model that stacks the best properties of model 1 and model 2 together. So again, we're not there to repeat the work that's been done by the amazing work that's done by CSR and WITS and UCT, but we're just trying to for the forestry industry, look at the gap and how can we fill this for ourselves. And obviously getting good rainfall data for farmers on a monthly level will give them a lot to talk about and a lot to think. So yeah, I think that will be very, very important. And lastly, I see you wrote a lot about my HPW initiatives, and yes, being involved with HPW, yeah, there's only good things that can come out of it. Being through to Kenya to the research conference to hosting many of these HPWs, being part of it with many other institutions like UniZulu and UDW, and going to the Berg and the coast and online lectures. So these things make me very excited. And I think it's a lot for all of us to learn from and be part of. So I'm very excited that we are a very vibrant group, and the thing about being in a group that can contribute a little bit. I know we're all busy, but just a little bit where you can help out goes a long way. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. A lot to talk about. Can keep you here for another hour, but I don't want to bore you. So I hope that was good. And yeah, so thank you very much for your time, guys. And it will be interesting to always get to know you guys. And as you guys, I always see these tweets and the emails come in with all you young guys doing different things, whether it's a school program or different talks. It's just always amazing. So keep up the good work. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Doc. I think this was an interesting talk, and I'm certain there are questions. So if anyone has a question, please put your hand up. Yes, Session.
Thank you. Hi, Dr. Kabir. Thank you so much for the talk. It was really, really good. Really enjoyed it. I just wanted to find out how does a lot of the work which SAPI does relate or crossover into other industries, like say sugarcane, as an example, even citrus? Just curious. Thanks.
Oh, nice. Okay, good question. Very good question. So one thing that I didn't manage to add into my presentation, which is globally what SAPI does, and the sugarcane question always comes up. I know a lot of the times we always think, you know, what is paper made from, and we always say it comes from trees, but a lot of the tree is so valuable that it can't be used for paper. And I'll give you an example of what trees are used for. But when it comes to sugarcane, I know one of our mills close to Stanger, that's up past Zululand, I think. No, it's probably closer to just past Stanger, before Zululand. And what they do is they actually use the sugarcane husk for paper. And I think they blend it into paper or into cardboard, and they use less of the tree. So let me give you an example of what the trees are used for. The trees are, if you ever buy a new cell phone, look at the box at the back. There's something called FSC certification, and you got a picture of a tree. You go to Woolies, you look at the slip at the back, you got FSC certification. And what it means is your trees are certified from a sustainable source. So a lot of the tree product goes into specialized packaging. It goes into things like a bulking agent into your cereal. It goes into your wood glue. It goes into your makeup. It goes into pharmaceuticals is a big one, because your tablets, so if you look at your Panado, I think like 10% of it is the active ingredient of the medicine. And the others are like biodigestible products. I might get the configurations wrong, but you know, it's plant-based from the tree, so it's easy digestible. A lot of, they blend it into food. A big part of the tree goes into clothing, textiles. So wood glues, paints, jet fuel. And they're always coming up with new ways of sustainability and trying to support packaging. Cell phone, I think there's a big cell phone market with the reliable or sustainable packaging. Creating nice, strong boxes to export fruits and nuts to the overseas market. SAPI is into packaging. Graphite paper, so specialized paper like the coated paper that's very expensive. You know, you go to a shop and for 10 you pay a lot of money. Those are specially coated with products from SAPI. So it's not just about going into trees. And as far as I know, with the sugarcane, the husk goes into a blend for making paper, cardboard, and strengthening those products. But yeah, lipstick, another one. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Yes, I think Nakolo, Access HPW.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. K, for your wonderful presentation. So I have a question, because you do GIS, and I am currently having a project that requires GIS. So I saw that you had different maps that use different mapping softwares. I'm so sorry if I'm butchering or destroying the terminology from the GIS world. I just wanted to know, what software do you download for those things? And the second question is, have you ever done your work in wetlands before? Thank you.
Okay. With regards to those maps, I'm using something called Python. It's a scripting language that you type into your computer, and your computer then uses the code to produce what you want. It's very, very difficult, that even we have issues, and I get people to help me. But if you're looking at GIS and remote sensing, you should be using things like RStudio or Python. But sometimes it's for advanced users. There's other softwares that make your life easier, like QGIS, ArcGIS. But yeah, if you ever need help, just let me know where you are. There's always I have colleagues all over that can actually point you in the right direction. With regards to wetlands, I'm just trying to think. I think mangroves, wetlands, no, mangroves is the closest. Wetland delineation, I'm trying to think if we had some work, but nothing. I don't have any students on wetlands, mainly looking at like vegetation, grasslands, things like that. So nothing specifically in wetlands. If you do read some of my papers, I'm just trying to think. But yeah, I wouldn't know anything. Remember with remote sensing and GIS, I know someone did a study of mapping the likelihood of wetlands based on environmental variables. So that's something that's possible. But I don't think I've done anything on that. But yeah, good luck with your topic.
Thank you, Doc. I think Dr. Palmer has a question, but he has complained of network. Hopefully, he's able to answer the question, ask the question.
No problem at all. Thanks, Kabir. That was a really interesting talk. It's great to find out a bit more about what you do. You mentioned LiDAR, which I vaguely remember from varsity days. I don't think you defined it, and I can't remember what it is. Could you just maybe tell us what it is and how you can get it on your phone? That sounds fascinating.
Okay, all right. So, so LiDAR, traditionally what we do with it or how it's acquired is it's sensor that's put up on a plane. They fly the plane over, it shoots pulses of light rather than a picture. So it shoots pulses or beams of light that hits an object and then returns the light back to the sensor. And based on that light, they work out the distance. So the distance from the sensor to the plane, and whatever it hits, it then returns back a measure of distance. So with LiDAR, you get a point cloud, which is all it hits, and then it records distance. So when I said you can do it on your phone, we mimicked it with the phone using pictures. We tried to use different methods to get those point clouds, which is not as accurate, but LiDAR is going to be best. So if you're talking about it on your phone, probably 5 years ago or 2 years ago, we'd say, you know what, you can't get LiDAR on your phone. It's a big chunky box of a camera that needs to be mounted on an airplane. Guys mount it on a van, guys mount it on a vehicle to get a picture of an entire area. But again, I explained it as a cop camera shooting a laser beam of light and then measuring as you're moving. It's keep on measuring the distance towards you based on the distance and the speed that light travels. So that's just one pulse beam. Now imagine with the LiDAR sensor sending millions of pulses and try and get a picture. So yeah, with the phone, you'd say it doesn't have the memory, it doesn't have the processing capacity to have LiDAR on it. It's very intensive. But I think the Apple 12 has LiDAR, a simple LiDAR camera. Your self-driving cars have LiDAR sensors now, and we've bought one of those sensors at SAPI to try and use that in our nursery. But yeah, so that's the concept of LiDAR. I hope that's clear. It's just a light beam shoots out and then comes back with a point of distance. And that point can be multiple dimensions. It could be the end, it could be a near point, but it'll be a point. And then you take that point and you try and create a surface and then you work with that. So yeah, the iPhone 12, I think, is it 12? Carl, you're an iPhone person. I'm not sure which one it is, but the one with that camera is bloody expensive. And what it does is it allows you to visualize your room using distance. I know the iPhone 10 or 11, you could measure on your camera and it'll tell you the distance. That's computer vision. And yeah, LiDAR is unfortunately not computer vision. It's like advanced processing. But yeah, so if you get a chance, look at the specs of the iPhone. You can have a LiDAR sensor in your lounge. Yeah.
Charles, I saw your hand up. Do you still want to ask the question, or you already answered?
Oh, I still want to answer. I mean, to ask the question. So, but thank you, Dr. Kabir, for a great presentation. So my question is basically similar to what Nokolo was saying a little bit earlier. So Dr. Kabir, I just want to find out if the environmental factors you have already mentioned, particularly focusing on the disease, such as the plant's parasitic nematodes that lives in the soil where the propagated plants have been planted, have an impact, or how do they have an impact on the chlorophyll content of the plants? Because our focus now is on the climate or climatic conditions, because I believe that they do plays an important role in affecting those um, um, variables. And my second question is that for instance, for the plants that are grown in greenhouses, obviously they are planted indoors, right? And in my case, I'm doing a research that is similar to what you were presenting about a little bit earlier. So my research is basically conducted in greenhouses, and you are never sure the environmental changes or the environmental conditions that are there. And for which 95% of my plants have also been affected by powdery mildew. And you know that powdery mildew can be affected by different environmental factors such as lights and so forth. So how can you or is there any systematic approach that maybe I can use to be able to observe those kind of changes in the greenhouse, or is there any systematic tools? Because since you are focusing on remote sensing or remote modeling, yeah, that I can actually use to be able to observe and control my study.
Okay, good questions. I might not be able to answer all of them, but I'm going to try. So the first one with the environmental variables and like nematodes in the soil and how does it impact? So again, you have to do a study, but I'm sure that there will be an effect of the environment. So your environmental variables, aspects, slope, soil depth, soil type, has to have an impact. Because remember, for a host or something to host a disease or any type of living organism, you have to have the right conditions. For example, with pests and diseases, they say in a one cube meter of air, there's 20 million bacteria or spores in there. It just needs the right conditions to trigger it. In a greenhouse, you can double it because it's a closed environment. So what happens is that those environmental conditions are very important in promoting or not promoting something to occur. So if you want a pest or disease in the soil or a nematode, the conditions have to be right. So you have to investigate it, and I don't know to what extent, but I know it's important. So you have to look at those environmental variables. With the powdery mildew, I know we normally spray. There's a product called Kanga or garlic, and it's basically garlic extract that is available commercially. If you go to any of your PWK or your plant stores or your nursery and ask them for, do you have garlic that can spray on powdery mildew? And I think we spray that once a week, and it works. I don't know if that will help you, but I know there's much more other things out there. With regards to remote sensing and powdery mildew, I don't know. We haven't tested any sensors or anything like that, whether it'll have an effect. So what's nice is something called UV light. So if you shine a UV light, we are hoping that it kills that powdery mildew. And you're right, it has to do with the environment, with the light and stuff like that. So we're going to be looking at UV light to kill spores and powdery mildew and all those greenhouse pathogens that are there. So if you kill the spores, hopefully it won't have so much of an effect. But yeah, very, very new research. So your research will also be novel and contribute to this body of knowledge.
Thank you very much, Doc. Session, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, hi. Yeah, I've just got like two brief ones just came to mind. With technological developments and advancements, has it maybe increased opportunities to maybe experiment with different forms of radiation? Like, so for example, in my work, we use seismic waves to map the seafloor and then to like describe features and do our own little bit of like play with that. So yeah, are there any other forms of radiation that you can use apart from like infrared or UV or yeah? And my second question is, how regularly do you guys map the plantations? Because I can imagine it being like quite expensive, conventionally. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Good. So yeah, it's just like what you do in the radiation. There's something called synthetic aperture radar. So it's SAR. It's a SAR, known as SAR. And this CSIR, I think they were actually building their own aircraft with their own SAR sensor that is going to be flying up into the sky and imaging the whole of South Africa. But Sentinel-2, it's a satellite that provides free SAR at 10-meter resolution. So similar to how you mapping the seismic waves under the sea, this SAR is from the sky and it's at your structure of the Earth. So you can map out anything close enough on the Earth. That's the only form of radiation that I can think of, synthetic aperture radar, that can be used from a remote sensing perspective. I know they use SAR for mapping wind. Wind, I'm trying to think, wind speed in the ocean. And some work doing with mapping ships and all that stuff like that. So some very good work with the SAR. Your second question, forgot it. What was it, Sasha?
How regularly do you guys fly over the plantations and map out, the forests?
Okay, so we partnered up with a company called what was it? Planet, and they have small Dove satellites. So satellites like a shoebox, and they can put millions up in the sky. And they were mapping our plantations every day. So gone are the days where you wait every 2 weeks or every 16 days from a satellite. These Dove satellites, they sit up just above the clouds and they're working all the time. So we used to get weekly imagery. Now we're getting daily imagery. I'm not sure how long we're going to do it for, but that's the level it's gone to. And if you look at some of the commercial satellites, Digital Globe, they're trying to map the same place on Earth twice a day. So you can imagine the level of detail these guys are going to, and not from far. They're doing it at like 2 centimeters, 3 centimeters, 5 centimeters, 10 centimeters. So it's crazy with the technology out there. And I can imagine you would know also with the seismic waves and stuff, the amount of detail these guys go. With LiDAR, we do it every 2 years. LiDAR is very expensive, so you have to pay millions to do it. And in this economic climate, you can imagine LiDAR, you want that information, but you can only do it every 2 years or every year, half the province a year, half the other province. But looking at the pictures and the remote sensing data, yeah, you can get it up to a day now. It's not too bad.
Can I ask one more thing quickly on that note? Because with all that data, how does it increase opportunities to maybe apply things like machine learning and all the like the new developments, especially in computer science, to this sort of work?
Exactly, and that's why we do deal with all these algorithms and machine learning and artificial intelligence. We want to be at the forefront. Some of the work we do and that's why we publish a lot, because the work you do is novel. You take a novel IG, you put this into your data set, and you publish it, and hopefully it makes an impact. And we also supervise students. So try and get those ideas out. You can't do it on your own. So you help the students, you get them out of there. But yeah, you need big data. You need big machinery. You need to do cloud processing. You need to learn how to do it. It's not, no one comes and shows you. So that's why you learn, and then hopefully you chat to people, go into seminars like this. How do you do this? What platform do I use? And they point you in right directions. And then you sit there and you learn as a master's, honors, PhD student. And that's the hard part. So somehow you have to have someone to help you as well, because you can't do it on your own. And you just sit there, Google got everything now. YouTube has everything. Sit there, do the courses, learn it. So with all that big data sets and machine learning, we are trying to do it. You can see the mapping of the interpolation is based on a machine learning approach. We use in artificial intelligence deep learning as well. But sometimes it's just too much of data here. Computers can't handle it. You have to narrow it down. SAPI is has a big footprint, so you can't do all of it now. Just not too long ago, a friend of mine was asking me, how can we download these images? It's so big. It's 1 gig an image, and you have to cover it across how do you download this thing? Your bandwidth is not enough. So again, it's technologically driven. Everything is improving, and we just sit there and crunch it away. Find the best way. Use what you have, and do it. Sometimes you can't just. We're in a resource-stricken country as well. You can't get all the technology. So we're using these Python, these R modules. They're free, and you can sit and learn slowly how to do these things. You don't have to go big with the commercial stuff. There's a lot of free stuff to get away with modeling. You just have to sit and learn it.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Zandile, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you. Thank you, Doc, for a great talk. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I believe that alien and invasive plants put a lot of stress on indigenous or local plants. So is there a solution or methods on how to remove alien and invasive plants without having like adverse environmental impacts? And also so that they can reduce the stress on local or indigenous plants. And also, do you guys use drones to collect data for mapping? And how useful are drones in terms of collecting data? Like, can we use that data in ArcGIS and QGIS?
Okay, good question. So yeah, I did my PhD in alien invasives and remote sensing. So it's a big issue. There's so much biocontrol methods. Spraying is the easiest, but costly on a big scale. Biocontrol methods is nice. They release different bugs to go and eat that. But they always, when they run out of eating those alien invasives, they go eat our agriculture. So a lot of issues there. The best thing is what we do is, as remote sensors, you map out, you get those spectral images or spectral pixels, you work out the pattern on what represents it, and you map it out, and people go and create. The best, that's my perspective. Others is very nice, a lot of research based, but alien invasives are always an issue. An invasive is always an issue. You mechanically take it out, it grows again. So there's a lot of ways of controlling it over time. With regards to your second question, so yeah, with alien invasives, it's tricky. I'm just trying to think. Sorry, your second question again.
Do you guys use drones to collect data, and how useful are drones?
A nice one. So yeah, we do have our own SAPI drones. We invested some money in buying not the state-of-the-art ones, the very simple ones with thermal sensors. So we try and play around with that in the forest as well. But it's not the best. So you can go look at a normal drone. The key thing is the sensor. So we partnered up with some company that has a very nice sensor, very expensive sensor. And we are using it for test sites. The issue is that with the drone, it can only fly 20 hectares or 30 hectares of your plantation. That's one rugby field or one soccer field, or I'm not sure how many fields. But yeah, it's limited, it's battery based, but the data from it is so nice. We like mapping things on a tree level, so you can see each tree. As remote sensors, it's everything about resolution, just like a phone. You want a better camera, you want more pixels, megapixels. So that's the idea behind the drones. We're using it for disease detection, we're using it for alien invasives. But again, it's just projects that are interesting to us, that we want to try and apply it to everything. So yeah, definitely the drone route is a good thing. I hope I answered both questions for you. Thank you.
Great. Nokoro, I thought you had your hand up. Is it still up or?
No, Zandi asked what I was going to ask.
Oh, perfect. Sisa, Nesisa, I think you can ask your question now.
Thanks, Andy. So, hi, Dr. Kabir. That was actually a very informative talk. Thank you for that. So, I have two very weird questions. Okay, so with the LiDAR, correct me if I'm wrong. I think if you mapping. You might have said it in your talk. I may have missed it, but if you're going to map sort of tree health, you use the canopies, right?
Yeah.
And LiDAR takes into account the canopies of the plants, and it's highly accurate. So my question there is, how do you account for the months where the trees lose sort of their leaves? Does the LiDAR work the same way, or there's a way around that? Second question is in terms of pre-processing the LiDAR, because I'm busy with a similar project, and I am trying to account the overlap or the noise. So in most cases, the LiDAR comes back noisy, obviously taking into account the drone or the flight or whatever, or the terrain. So do you put the overlap onto the health of the tree, or do you consider it as noise and you discard it? And in most cases, if you consider it as noise and you discard it, it sort of leaves gaps in your data set, which causes problems later on for your results or whatever. So how then do you go around that? Thanks.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I'm trying to answer best to what I know, and hopefully it'll guide you. So with regards to the leaves, yeah, so we're talking about a canopy, so a big tree, the top of the tree like that, and then there's many like that. So remember, we don't have LiDAR all the time, so we do it once. But when you imaging over time, whether with the picture or with LiDAR, let's say you are doing it regularly, so you account for the leaves or the loss of leaves. Remember, LiDAR is structure. So structure meaning a pulse is hitting the point and giving you the distance, so many points on that structure. So structurally, that LiDAR will be able to tell you the difference between a tree with leaves and a tree without leaves or less leaves, hopefully, right? But theoretically, it should tell you the difference between a healthy or a one with less leaves. With remote sensing, with the picture, that might also depend the level of leaf loss. But if you use like NDVI or something, it must give you a different reading, because the more leaves equals more photosynthesis, more NDVI or higher NDVI, more foliage. So you should pick up those differences if you have that data set. With regards to the noise, I know if you process it in using LAS tools in ArcGIS, or you can use R, that's free, it's just code-based also. LiDAR is noisy, so you need to find out how many points per square meter you have. Normally you have 5 points per square meter, 2 points. And then per square meter, you then average that into a pixel, which is a square pixel. So look at how many points per square meter you have. The vendor should have that data, or your drone should have that data. If you have like 5 points or 4 points or 3 points per square meter, it means you have a lot of hits in that square meter. So if you see noise, sometimes noise, it could be weeds, it could be background scatter, it could be just sensor malfunction. So if you see how many points per square meters, 2 or 3 or 4 or 2, whatever the value is, you can then see, okay, I can discard a certain number of points. It's not going to affect my data. But in your case, you're saying that it is leaving gaps. So there is a way or a smoothing filtering method. There is a filtering method if you're using ArcGIS or LAS, or even R or QGIS, whatever you're using. There should be a filtering method to create you a continuous surface without getting those noisy variables in. So I know when you got LiDAR, you get different returns. And that's the distance I'm telling you. So if the LiDAR hits the top of the tree, it records the distance. Then some go to your mid canopy, it records the distance, and some hits the ground. So you've got 3 different layers. Find out what are the layers of LiDAR you have. If you only have top, you can discard the bottom. Sometimes you need to separate first layer from second layer to third layer and just keep the top and keep the ground. If you're interested in the under canopy, then you keep the center one. Otherwise, you discard it as noise. So just see how you want it, and you want a clean product. But I know your filtering method should not give you noise or empty spots, because it kind of interpolates for you. It smoothens it out. So just play around with that filtering methods, and then look at your returns. As I said, which return you're dealing with first, second, and third. That's the best I can think of right now. But if you get in gaps, there are methods to smoothen those gaps away, so you won't have any gaps.
Okay, thank you for that. It actually helps. I tried the smoothing and then it gave me like 100% perfect data set, which is not always the case. But yeah, I will try the filtering. Thank you so much.
Perfect. I think that should be fine. You don't have to, if it gives you 100%, then it's LiDAR's good. You know, sometimes you just have to accept it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Session, do you still have the question? I thought I saw your hand up. It's no longer up now.
Yeah, it's a very brief one. That's just out of interest, because I'm not sure with the canopy and with the foliage cover if it would be possible. Do you guys ever maybe map like nutrient fluctuation and nutrient cycling within like the plantation, like
Yeah,
the soil?
Soil, not soil, because remote sensing normally, you know, the trees are above it, so we can't penetrate deep in the soil. We can just see the top. We do nutrient work with regards to the leaves. I did nutrient work in grasslands. With soil, it's hard. We did soil organic carbon, but that won't be remote sensing based because your picture is from the top. So you need to use like gamma rays or something to go down. But yeah, again, yeah, we didn't look at soil per se. But again, like you can always interpolate soil samples. You know, that's one method of modeling, or nitrogen nutrients in the soil. So yeah, but nothing with remote sensing on soil unless you got a bare patch of soil with a satellite picture of your bare soil, and then you got ground truth points of soil. That's what I would think. A lot of those things are lab-based. People take a sample of soil, go to the lab, work out the nutrients, and then use some sort of laser in the lab or use some sort of moisture meter in the lab and try and correlate that.
Okay, thanks.
Cool.
Great. With so many questions, I'm sure there's still more to talk about. I'll just allow my colleague Charles to take over the discussion. I think we can just have a small discussion. Charles, over to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Andy. So I would like to say that is there anyone who would like to maybe say something or have one more or two more questions? Is there anything maybe you would like to, Andiswa?
Hi, I can see Nokolo has her hand up.
Oh, I didn't see Nokolo's hand.
Nokolo, I think you can go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so Dr. K, the question that I have for you is not about GIS or SANBI, then it's more about HPW. I saw on your last few slides, you had a lot of things that you have done in HPW, and you are the DNA winner.
Yeah.
So I just want to find out from you, if someone is not part of HPW or is not a Planeteer yet, what would you say to convince that person to join this family?
Nice question. All right, let's try and answer that. But okay, so we do this all the time. I'm sure if you have a friend, you always say, hey, you know, I'm part of this group. We're going to do this. Do you want to come? So I think what the message would be to those who want to join, or we encourage you to join, is being part of a group, passionate group. You can't get that everywhere. And I think it's something, it's a unique experience with Access. I've been part of many groups, a lot of people, but with the Access community, I think the people who hold it together are the same people that I've come through the system with. So you have good leaders, you have good people. So anyone who comes through that channel, are bound to get something or bound to gain something good. And we always talk about what can you get from this group. It's whether it's your soft skills or your confidence building, or whether it's your core, just engaging and talking about this knowledge. Look at us here. We're sitting here today and we're all passionate about the science work. Taking this away mentally sometimes just gives you a better day. So if you can take away that little bit peace of mind, imagine what on top of that, what more can one gain by being part of this group for more number of days. So whether it's scientific or just engaging with a smart bunch of people, those that can critically engage with topics. So I'd highly encourage people, if you want to stimulate your mind, and just be part of the HPW family.
Thank you, Dr. K.
Thank you, Notolo, for the wonderful question. So I'll just also maybe try to extensively add my thought about HPW, I can say. So to be honest with you, I also believe that if maybe you want to convince someone to be part of HPW, or basically, like for instance, myself, when I started being part of this initiative, to be honest with you, at some point, for instance, like that part of the system science, I didn't know about it very much. To incorporate it with also my study, it wasn't like quite working. But as I keep on like engaging and making sure that maybe I try to infuse or sort of like incorporate the course that I'm doing with the modules I'm doing, and the knowledge that I've already grasped or keep on grasping from my peers has also like helped me in terms of like developing the capability that is within me through science to maybe differ or like be diverse when it comes to the field of study. So now I can say that I'm actually able to vet from agricultural science, because the most interesting part about it is the fact that it is a very diverse field of study. There is nematology in it. You can also do GIS in it. You can also like do most of the environmental science related activities, or scientific research based about it. So it has also enabled that, like for an example, now myself, I'm doing my honors degree, right? So for my masters, I would make sure that maybe I incorporate or do something that has got to do with the earth system science, because before I've actually thought about such, but I didn't have an alternative or sort of like a clear path to take in order for me to do that study. So I can basically say that in accordance with what Dr. Kabir and everybody has contributed to on today's webinar, I can say that it is very much positive and enlightening to some of us, and to anyone that is interested to go for this kind of environmental and geographical field of study. So yeah, thank you very much. Oh, not to forget, is there anyone who also would like to add something or want to discuss with us? Okay. No. Or Takali is saying no. So which means everyone is now fine and sorted. So I'd like to hand it over to Hilton for closing.
Thank you very much, Carl, for bringing in the table. Ladies and gentlemen, we are almost close to our event. So it has been a a wonderful evening, and I believe that many of us have learned a lot from our previous precious Dr. Kabi. To you as the speaker of the day, we as the NEC and Access would like to thank you very much for taking your time to come here and teach us a lot. I really enjoyed your presentation, and I hope that in one of the good days, maybe we can sit down and discuss one or two things, only if you are open for PhD students intake, wherever you are. So if I were to advise someone to join Access, I'll just say a few words. I'll just tell them that it's free fun and food. So you just go there to enjoy, learn, and everything. You will know that it's it is the theme for Access. It's free. There is a lot of fun and food, but don't forget there's a lot of learning as well. So Dr. Kabi, thank you very much, and it's so nice to see you again on Access. We really love you here in this family. So thanks very much for taking your time.
And nice to see you. Nice to see you guys as well, and we'll chat soon. Thanks a lot, guys. Yeah, you are welcome. It's been a while. Hey. Yeah, you must take me for PhD, you see. Okay, yeah, guys, for those who are not with us on social media, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube as well, so that you keep track with our events and workshops and everything. So I would just like to call upon Dr. Carl if you have something to say to the participants and our presenter, since you are the leader of the group. Dr. Carl?
Thank you, Hilton. I wasn't really prepared to say anything, and I note that it's gone on a little bit, so I'll keep it short. And just to say thanks very much to the organisers and to Dr. Kabir for tonight, but for the whole series. It's been absolutely fantastic. It's really great that that the Students' Committee are putting on events like this, and I hope there'll be many more, because I think everybody's contributed and learned a lot, and little groups like this getting together is something that we can easily contribute. So thanks very much, everyone, and well done to the committee, and thank you, Kabir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Carl. I'll just call our NEC chair just to have a few words to the participants and the presenter. Chair?
Okay, so mine is very short. We had 4 webinars each and every week, and I must say sometimes it was hard, but there were people that were always joining. There were people that were always willing to come and share information with us. So to the speakers that came throughout the different weeks, we would like to thank you. We see you and we appreciate you. And to the MVPs, the people that have been joining to listen and to ask questions and to take notes, thank you so much. We would have never done this without you. And to my team, because of you guys, the work was lighter, it was easier. So thank you so much. Thank you, Hilton.
Yeah, thank you very much for such wonderful words. Yeah, we really appreciate your guidance and your leadership. Under your leadership, we can see that we are doing very much well. So thank you for holding us well. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining our event. It was nice having you around, and I would also like to thank the team for making this event a success. It has been a wonderful up and downs on social media, on WhatsApp, and everywhere, trying to make this a success. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Don't forget to follow us on social media. Have yourself a good night.